Hello, everyone. Mike the Beast here with another fun top 10 list. And we had such a great turnout. Shout out to the live chat from our top 10 favorite comic book artists. And we talked about this during that show. We should do a top 10 writers. Why not? So we reached out to our good friend, Justin Nemesis Prime. And he said, hell yeah. So we got us three doing it tonight. And we're looking forward to it. So I mentioned you already. Justin, how's it going?
Good. How's it going, boys? It's good to be on the show again. I like these top tens. You know, unfortunately, I wasn't part of the artist, which I would have loved to. But hell, I'll take writers.
Let's be honest. There'll be more because I mean
Absolutely.
we can. There's so many different avenues you can go with it that it'll happen again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the guy you just heard speak, Chin, welcome back. Thanks again for hopping on. How's it going?
Thanks. I'm pumped to do this. As you know, I don't like ranking things, yet I continually do it. But no, it's this one. We kind of talked about it. It is. I think this one was definitely a little bit tougher than artists. I think this one might upset people more in the way of how do you not have this run or this person on there. I want to preface this with a lot of us. You know, we grew up. You know, we're roughly the same age, kind of, and we, you know, it's our favorites. It's not. Yes. We're not saying it. It might say the top 10 comic writers, but it's our top 10. It's a personal list. It's what we've read, and you know you can't read everything. So hopefully we get some recommendations out of this. Hopefully other people watching this get some cool recommendations out of this of just great stuff to read. So
yeah, Chin, you beat me there with the preface that I wanted to say before this video, just like with the top 10 artists. This is our personal favorite top 10, not who we think are the definitive top 10 greatest artists of all time. And like I liked how you mentioned, you know, please, the chat, we're open for another fun chat. Recommend, you know, leave your guesses. Maybe I'll bear the lead here, but Chin did tell us that there's only 2 between the 3 of us that all 3 have. So as the show goes on, feel free to put that in the comments. We got a couple people in. John Big Daddy Ross, always thank you for tuning into these videos. Appreciate it. And our good friend Noah from Book Boy Comics, he just put out an awesome part 1 to his Terrificon experience, first ever. So that was, check that video out.
He's crushing it over there with those videos.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and I also kind of wanted to say, add to that preface a little bit. Grown up in the 90s, you know, before you can read, obviously I'm, you know, looking at pictures a lot when I was growing up. Then
porn does not count, Mike. Porn does not count.
I need to send you a whole new top 10 then. Hello. I could only assume that is the Otto one from 3 Men in a Basement.
I think it is. It's not me, so.
Thanks for tuning in. And so I really got into my comic book reading after I kind of got away from comics. I did a lot of the I did some reading in high school, but not a lot. But I'm also a very slow reader. I read a book this summer, and it was the only book I read. It took me the whole summer. So I am a very slow reader. So I love getting into a good run. But if the longer the run, the heck of a longer it's going to take me to actually finish it. So there's so many runs. So there might be a couple people that aren't on my list. That's simply because I either haven't finished one of their most iconic runs, or I haven't even gotten to it yet. Because I really got back in the comics and did a lot of my reading, collecting in college and post-college. So that's just my little, you know, PSA, I guess. And but yeah, I've read enough where I feel pretty good about my list. We might get some people angry, but I'm looking forward to go over these and hearing yours.
Let's dive into these things. Like Mike said, there's 2 writers that made all 3 of our lists. There's only 2. Take your best guesses. These guys took their guesses, and we'll see what happens. Who did you guys say, just for the record, going forward?
I don't want to say it yet. Let these people figure out who we have on our list.
Okay. All right. Good call. Yeah, because you guys know at least who you have on yours. All right. But yeah, also give us your top 10.
Yes.
Let's hear what you think about our picks. Let's hear your picks. Let's go from there. Because I can guarantee you there's some people that we don't have that, you know, some people will be like, how is that possible? This is a comic book writers list and this person's not on here.
Yeah. I went 20 and then I just had to keep taking people off.
So I at the end of this, I literally just put kind of like I did for the artist. I just put an honorable mention slide, and I didn't even put like pictures or names because there was just so many people that I was like, let's just talk about it because we could go on. This would be a 4.5 day show.
Oh God, yeah.
Seriously.
All right. Shall we do it?
Let's start this
Sure.
off, Chin.
All right. You gotta accept the thing in there.
No one man should have all this power.
There you go. Top 10 writers. Top 10 comic writers. Let's get into it. Number 10. Also,
So
the photos are weird. They're actually them. So you're gonna find out what some of these guys look like.
I heard, or will hear in the future a bunch of people going, number 10, Mike. Here's the skinny on that. I went with Chris Claremont. So it took me a while to start reading his iconic X-Men run that he's very well known for. Before that, I was kind of reading a couple. So I'd read Days of Future Paths and Death of Dark Phoenix, but that's really all I had read until a couple of years ago when I really started reading his run. So I'm not completed with his run, but I had to put him on there because of those two arcs alone and just all the characters that he really introduced and, laid the groundwork for why a lot of his X-Men fans are X-Men fans right now.
Yeah, solid reasoning. I'm not gonna argue with that pick.
Also, an awesome guy to meet at a convention. He's been at Terrificon multiple years. Loves to talk. Loves to talk X-Men. He'll give you his honest opinion on things, which is great.
I've talked to him many times at a few different shows, and he will deep dive into how he came about writing, why he thinks certain writers don't do it the right way, and all this and that. And he's awesome to listen to some of the stories. Oh, this guy, yeah, couldn't even make up his own list.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
Solid pick.
Thank you, Justin. Who do you got number 10?
So Dan Slott had to put him on here. Pretty much the quintessential Spider-Man writer over the past, I don't know, call it 30 years if you think about it. He's the guy who killed Peter Parker. His Superior Spider-Man run was amazing, and then just the continuation of Amazing Spider-Man bringing back Peter and creating the whole Spider-Verse and all the different spiders. That's kind of why I put him on here.
It's
when I saw him on your list, I was like, yeah, you know what? It's kind of hard. If you're a Spider-Man fan, it'd be hard not to have this guy on your list.
He was definitely someone I was going to say my honorable mentions, and I really loved the Red Goblin arc up to was it 796 to 800. Being a huge Goblin fan and Carnage fan, I loved the way he did the Red Goblin. There's some really moments that hit the heartstrings in those couple issues for me.
There you go. Nice. Solid picks, Sean. Solid picks. I went for number 10, Charles Soule. He does more than just comics. He writes a bunch of books and stuff too. But the reason he cracked the top 10 for me is his Darth Vader run. It's so effing good. I absolutely love it. I've read most of his Daredevil run. But he's done a ton of Star Wars stuff. He did the Vader run again. I can't recommend that enough. But he did the Kylo Ren miniseries. He's done a handful of good Star Wars storytelling. I know a lot of people complain about Star Wars nowadays and how they're doing too much and this and that. But this guy, he's been killing everything he does. So, but I love his style of writing, and especially where. Yes, I know he's done much more than the Star Wars books, but to add something into a franchise that's been going for so long and still like really, really nail it is very impressive, and he does that. So that's why he cracks my top 10 for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Moving along to 9, let's plow right through this list, shall we?
I love it.
Let's do
Justin,
it.
start off with yours.
So number 9, Denny O'Neil, quintessential, guy who brought Batman back, right? For the Silver and Bronze Age, without Denny O'Neil, Batman wouldn't be where he is. Creator of many different characters along him and Neil Adams, basically put Batman back on the map. You have so many first appearances thanks to Denny, as well as the Green Arrow run. So I had to put an old school writer on there, and it has to be Denny because he's done so much throughout the years. or had done so much throughout the years, not just Batman, but I would say definitely the Silver Age into the Bronze Age writer for me, for sure.
No, yeah, excellent pick. He was an honorable mention for me. But yeah, we wouldn't have modern comics Batman wise if it wasn't for him.
Him and Neil saved the Batman. You know, nothing against the 89 or 66 Batman, but he was in that period, and you know, I might get more into him a little bit later, but Denny and Adams, just that run.
Yeah, no, great pick. I went with the one and only Mr. Neil Gaiman. For if only one reason, his Sandman run. If you have not read Sandman, I cannot recommend it enough. It's one of the best arcs in stories in comics in general. He's very kind of it's very dialogue heavy in a lot of things. He like really kind of gets into it, and I personally like that. I've also enjoyed. I mean, he's written many other books. He did. It was at 1602. I've only read a little bit of, but the Sandman run is the reason he is on my number 9. It's one of my all-time favorites. Do yourself a favor, read it if you have not. The show is also very good. If you haven't watched the show, they're doing a pretty good job of adapting it. But I've been a big fan of him for a long time, and he's got. I know we're talking comics, but he's got a couple of Doctor Who episodes that are some of the best episodes in all of Doctor Who. He's a very multifaceted writer, and he's fantastic. So he's on my top 10.
Nice.
Yeah, you mentioned the Sandman. That's one of those just iconic runs I've never read, and knowing me, you're probably shocked being a big horror fan. But that's always on my list of stuff to read. So that's why he didn't make my list. Definitely an honor mention to tip the cap for everything he has done, and you know I'll get to Sandman one of these days because it's right up my alley. And then my number 9, your friend and mine, Jerry Ordway. Power of Shazam, iconic, kind of reinvented Shazam in a way, brought more into the public image again. But mostly why I put him on my list, being a Superman fan. Him and John Byrne restarting Superman, reinventing Superman, and I really love the run they did together. And going forward, everything there's Superman. Jerry Ordway is the one during Superman Summit, so I guess this is technically, you'd put under writing. What should we do with Superman? And Jerry goes, why don't we kill him? And we wouldn't have had the death of Superman if it wasn't for, Jerry, because I guess the running joke was he always said that, but eventually, I think it was Mike Carlin was the head of the Superman team, and he goes, you know what, let's do it. So anytime, you see Jerry, the whole 90s Superman run, I talked a bunch about it on the last video, but the people involved with when he worked with Jurgens, Breeding, Stern, Wheezy, Bogdanov, that whole creative team, and Jerry's right in the middle of that, and I had to put him on my list.
Very nice man as well. I've met him many times at Terrificon. Super nice guy, knows his stuff, and loves talking about
Absolutely.
Comics.
Yeah.
Great pick. I will also say that there are a couple writers on this list that have a very similar photo to Jerry Ordway. It's like some DC writers. It's like they must have got together like, hey guys, it's photo shoot time. So if I found one that was similar to that, I used it because I thought they were very funny.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there's a couple on here. I was like, okay, let's do that. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, what are we on? Number 8?
Yeah, lead us off, Chin.
Cruising right through this thing. I love it. Here we go. My number 8, the king himself, Jack Kirby. Is he known mostly for his art? Yes. Is he also a great writer? Yes. And I'm not talking just like his stuff with Marvel and FF and everything. I love his DC stuff. His whole fourth world with the New Gods and Darkseid and Orion. It's such a crazy good world building. Like it's so hard to explain, but just the way he does world building and creates all these characters that are introduced into an already expansive world full of many different characters already, and has this whole new layer of kind of mythos and godlike characters and stuff like that. I mean, he's a lot like between the demon and everything, but his fourth world stuff, Mr. Miracle, one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, there was no way I couldn't put Jack Kirby on this list. I will say he is the only one that made my writers and artists list. Yeah. But yeah, that's Jack Kirby is my number 8.
Awesome. You may or may not hear me gush about him a little bit later. So I went with Jim Starlin. I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Cosmic stuff. And when you think of Infinity Gauntlet, a few names jump right to, top of your mind. And it's Jim Starlin. Before Infinity Gauntlet, he had already created Thanos, Drax, Gamora, Adam Warlock, and writ those characters, and writing those characters along with the whole Marvel universe with Infinity Gauntlet. He had a great team along with him, but his creativeness with that was huge for Marvel, and just one of the most iconic stories that Marvel has. And I got to mention Death in the Family. That's also one of the most iconic Batman stories. So had to put Jim there. Obviously a great person to meet at TriffCon as well. Met him a couple times. Always super pleasant. And gotta go with the some Jim Starlin for me.
Great pick.
Good pick for sure.
And Justin, before you get into your pick, can I just say his was my favorite out of the photo shoot.
Well, these are probably the DC profiles that they have like on their little cards.
I think it is. Yeah. He just looks so happy and humble. He's like, I'll just gonna stand here.
God, he doesn't even look like that anymore. It's so crazy.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of weight. Yeah.
Jesus. So yeah, James, like, what can we say? Indie artist, indie writer, Something is Killing the Children, Department of Truth, World Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's so much that he's, being able to jump back and forth between all these worlds is just amazing. He started under the tutelage of Scott Snyder. And it was just amazing. And my favorite is his Detective Comics Rebirth run. Like, he really took characters that were, B and C level characters. He brought Clayface up to be like a cool character. He really brought Batwoman up to be a cool character, and just that whole rebuilding of that entire team with Tim Drake and Spoiler and Cassandra.
Girl.
Yeah, man. It was just so good with all the detective stuff that he did that, if it wasn't for him, because I kind of, I read the Detective for Volume 1, the New 52 stuff, and I was just like, I don't really know when the Rebirth comes if I want to stick with Detective or I want to just keep going with just the Batman stuff. But man, his stuff was probably the best. Him and Tom King's Batman stuff was literally right out of the gate the best stuff to read, for sure.
Couldn't agree more.
Nice. No, yeah. Both great picks from both of you guys. I probably read more Tinian than I have Starlin. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with both of you said. So nice. I can't wait till when we start getting down this list more. Also, if you just joined in, please make your picks for the 2 artists that are going to appear on all 3 of our lists. Writers, not artists. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the other one we did last week too. But yeah, only 2 writers made all 3 lists. Take your best guesses in the chat who they were, because we're moving on to number 7.
Cool. So I'll make this nice and quick. Justin really nailed it with Denny O'Neil. That Batman run is just iconic. Batman detective, creating all those good characters. I guess this is kind of a theme I just kind of realized a lot of, TriffCon guests of the past. One I regret, my biggest regret, not getting his. I remember his lines were always big, and there's, how crazy TriffCon can get. And I was like, there's a good chance he'll be here next year. You have that, just, I'll get him again. And after what sadly happened with Denny, I don't have that mindset anymore. Meet your legends, meet your idols, and when you have the opportunity, because you never know. So echo everything Justin said about his Batman work, and one of the all-time greats.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
No, excellent.
Ooh, Snyder, Scott, again, another it's weird, I've done a lot of DC stuff right now. We're gonna stick with the DC guys, but it means not Scott Snyder is just the modern age quintessential Batman guy, right? From the New 52 stuff, the whole Court of Owls, Batman Who Laughs, He's done the death metal stuff. Like, there's just so much that to talk
Yeah.
about for Scott, and he's helped a lot of people rise up. Like I said previously, with James and other
Mhm.
people that with his schooling, people go to his school and learn how to write. So, Scott is just an amazing writer at the end of the day, and I think he continues to do that. And same thing, he is able to write one world and then build off of another completely different thing, like James has done. So, he's done indie stuff like Witches and there was an
Noctera.
IDW, huh?
He did Noctera.
Yeah, Noctera. There was like a Space Fires, the indie IDW book that he did, like random, like there's like little books here and there that you're just like, how do you do this while you're also doing like a main streamlined story? Just to be
Yeah.
able to keep everything separately and be able to build worlds. And that's the thing that obviously with a lot of the indie writers is being able to build worlds.
Mhm.
So yeah, Scott had to be put on this list for sure.
No, excellent choice.
Yeah.
Yep. Super nice guy too.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, my number 7. I went with Brian K. Vaughan. Speaking of indie writers, Saga is a great read. It's talk about world building. It's just very expansive and awesome. I love Paper Girls. It was what 30 issues, I think. I'm a sucker for time travel, and he did it great. But he's done so much. Why the Last Man? Amazing read if you've never read it. He has so many awesome runs and miniseries that there was no way I was not going to be able to not put him on this list. He probably would have been on here for Saga and Why the Last Man alone. But yeah, I've been a fan of him for a very long time. And just my only complaint is he takes too many long breaks for books. He's got to
Of course.
keep turning it out, But no,
Yep.
I'm a big fan of his work. If you haven't read any of his stuff, I can't recommend it enough. Whether it's Paper Girls, Saga, there's no everything I've read from him. There hasn't been anything I have not enjoyed. So
did he do that Joker miniseries? I always get him and Azarello confused sometimes because of.
I know Azarello did a Joker miniseries.
That's what I'm thinking of. My first mistake of the night, if you're keeping track.
Yeah. But yeah, no, yeah. So he's my number 7. Big fan. Happy Saga's back too, so get to keep reading that. What are we on? Number 6?
Yeah.
Finishing off the back half here.
I believe it's Justin will lead the way.
So, Chip Zdarsky. I won't talk Batman. I swear this is like an entire Batman list, but I try not to. But I won't talk Batman. The reason why I put Chip on this list, not only just because of Batman, but I would say his Daredevil run.
Yeah,
was amazing.
It's crazy.
But I was first introduced to Chip way back on the indie side when he was writing Sex Criminals. Like that was just an interesting read, and it's still something that sticks to me today. Is just outside of the norm. So when he wrote Sex Criminals and that finished, I was just like, all right, like what's the next thing that Chip's gonna do? And went on to do some miniseries and stuff like that. And I just again throwing into him onto Daredevil was just like an amazing run. And then him writing Batman at the same time as writing Daredevil was just so perfect because of the the idea that both of them are very similar. So
yeah,
Chip is just someone that I think it just continues not to disappoint. The Avengers Twilight was an amazing run as well. So another like modern stuff that he was writing while he was doing Daredevil and Batman. So just some good stuff.
Yeah, his Daredevil run is one of the best Daredevil runs out there. It's pretty effing awesome. I also didn't realize, I don't know if it's just me or if I'm crazy. Does he not kind of look a little bit like Michael Scott?
Yeah.
I just
yeah. If you had the dark hair, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of saw it. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, all right. Just this is what happens when I look at a bunch of picture of writers that you don't normally like see. So I'm like, oh, okay. My number 6, Justin just talked about him, but Scott Snyder. There's no way he wasn't making this list. I mean, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Justin just said about everything. His Batman run alone would have put him on this. The fact that I remember when New 52 came out, there was so many people that were hating on it, and they were like, "This is stupid, rebooting the universe." Now, if you ask anybody, some of the best runs, I can almost guarantee you, Batman New 52, Scott Snyder's will be on that list. Noctera has been one of my favorite, most recent reads in past few years. I love, like I said, I love the death metal and Dark Knight's metal and stuff like that. He is so good at these very large, epic storytelling crossovers that involve so many different characters and so many plot threads and stuff like that. But then he can also switch gears very quickly to one of his like smaller indie books or indie runs seamlessly. And the fact that you can do that so effortlessly while also putting out quality material, there's no way you have to be on the top. You have to be on the top 10. So yeah, he's my number 6.
Great pick. And another person who could do just what you just described for Scott Snyder doing, Marv Wolfman. To be able to, obviously, Crisis on Infinite Earths might be, it's probably my second favorite DC event behind the Death of Superman. But before that, there'd been crossovers, but the scale of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and for him to do it, and it's an easy read. Those 12 issues, that could be a lot, depending, especially in the Bronze Age, late Bronze Age. Sometimes the writing isn't always great. To have 12 issues of a huge crossover like that connect, seamlessly so well, phenomenal. Some of the most iconic DC moments happen in that. I know he's done a lot between Marvel and DC, but the horror fan of me can't not mention he wrote the first 3 issues of Tomb of Dracula, which is one of my all-time favorite reads as well. And a guy got to me at TriffCon a couple years ago, super friendly. You always see pictures, and I was always like, I bet he's super nice and like a great personality. Not watching any interviews or anything with him, and he was just very, very great to talk to. And had him sign a bunch of those Crisis covers. But Marv Wolfman. Yeah,
I mean, Crisis is the comic book crossover, I would say. I loved his Teen Titans run. I loved him. Him and Perez on. He
was on there for mine for a while.
Yeah, I will say he was teetering between 10 and 11 for quite a bit of my lists. Great pick, Mike. Great pick.
I try. I'm the beast. So how you do?
So that's the back half right there, guys.
We're
ready for the top 5. I mean, we're cruising through this, but top 5. I can't believe here we go. We're gonna go into the first half of this right here.
And I can't believe you're next to lead us off.
Oh, I am next. Okay, so I will just sit here and talk about Chris Claremont then. My number 5 is Chris Claremont. I am a huge X-Men fan, so there's no way in hell I wasn't gonna have him on this list. He is one of those guys. Again, we kind of already talked about, so I'm not going to beat it over the head, but super nice to talk to and just loves what he does and is so involved in how to take a certain character and shift it a certain way and how to do that compared to how other people do it. And I mean, you can look at just his X-Men, from, was it 94 up, just that alone is, so in my opinion, one of the best stories in all of comics. But I've always just been a huge fan. God Loves, Man Kills. One of the I don't want to keep naming stuff because there's so many I could just go on. But there's a reason he was on Mike's list too. He's here. If you've not read Claremont, what are you doing? Get on it because he's fantastic. Even if you're not like a big X-Men fan or Marvel fan in general, I guarantee you there's at least a couple stories out there. You're like, this is a good story. Does not matter. This is a good story.
I forgot to mention. I got to mention this. The 2 times I met him. One was at Super Mega Fest. First time I met him, Logan had just come out, and he couldn't wait to start talking about it because he was known for just hating all the X-Men movies prior. So talking about Logan, how much he loved it, was a great experience I'll never forget. Second time I met him, I had found out that he did a Marvel team up of Spider-Man and Ghost Rider. Obscure book. I can't even tell you what the story was about, but I had heard and I loved the cover. So when I brought it up to him, his initial reaction was just like, ha! And starts flipping through and smiling to himself. So that was that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I met him the first time a long time ago, 2011, maybe 12, back in New York Comic Con. And the fact that he was the only one, there was like no one else at his table. And I talked to him for 20, 30 minutes about Gambit, like my all-time favorite character, the guy that got to create him. I was like, this is something else. And he started talking about how Jim was picking out the colors and all that. It was very cool. He loves what he does, and he enjoys the characters he writes. So he's my number 5.
And with my number 5, I mentioned at the beginning that I really started doing the bulk of my comic book reading in college, and that's when I was reading a lot of the famous. I was buying the trade paperbacks and iconic stories. When I graduated, shortly after I graduated college, it was right around when Rebirth started, and I was picking up so many of them, but I had to pick up Batman, and that was my first introduction to Tom King. Now that Batman run, overall, I did enjoy a good chunk of it. I really did. Despite what I thought, the wedding issue between Batman and Catwoman were great, and it ends with a little stinger. I love how he incorporated Bane early in his run, and outside then after knowing like that's how I got on that's how he got my radar. Being a huge Kirby fan, his Mr. Miracle run is phenomenal. A mini series, 12 issues. Him and Miss Gerard's art, his writing, just a perfect combination. If you haven't read it, definitely. And then I'm hearing, he did Vision, and this was right around with like, okay, I'm all aboard on Vision. Love what the MCU's done with him. Haven't read much of his, Bronze Age debut stuff. So Tom King's Vision run also phenomenal. And I love how Tom King just has so many great ideas too. Heroes in Crisis was a great idea. There's one moment in there is what really turns me off from that series. But overall, I like what he tried to do with that, and I definitely think it is worth the read. A lot of his ongoing stuff now, like I want to read his Penguin. I haven't gotten to the Penguin yet.
Wait. What was the issue with Heroes in Crisis?
So slight spoiler. It happens in one of the middle issues, so it's not a huge spoiler. But there's the scene with Harley Quinn versus the Trinity.
Oh, gotcha. And, okay. Yep. I already know what you're talking about. Yep. Okay.
I won't say much more because I'll just get angry. But once again, a great guy to meet. He's been at TriffCon a couple times. If you have the opportunity, if you haven't, he loves to talk too, and he loves. He's a big Kirby fan. I met him when he was attached to New Gods, and I can't wait for the New Gods movie. I'm a huge Kirby fan. He goes, yeah, I was on the plane over here writing the script so he's a huge comic book fan, which I appreciate. Super nice to talk to. And yeah, I definitely want to check out his Wonder Woman run that's currently ongoing and the Penguin, because I've heard nothing but good things. I know Justin, you and Zach talk about the Penguin on the Comic-Con podcast. So those are definitely on my radar, and Tom King's my number 5.
Nice.
Great pick.
For sure. So Chinmo had Charles Soule up higher. I had to put him down lower. I would say he's the one guy over the past, we're at 9 years right now that Star Wars has been at Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, he's written everything for Star Wars, whether it's like you said, the Darth Vader stuff, High Republic stuff, the Kylo Ren stuff, mini series, like everything from War of the Bounty Hunters, the Hidden Empire, like all that stuff. But not only that, he's got the indie stuff. He's got 8 Billion Genies. He's got the new stuff with like Hell to Pay, The Shrouded College.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was the first novelist for High Republic, Light of the
Jedi,
like
first novel. Yep.
I mean, there's not much more between like what Chinmo said and I said, but I mean, you could literally throw a dart at a board of all the Star Wars titles over the past 9 years, and you'd hit a Charles Soule book.
And not only that, you'd hit a very well done Charles Soule book.
Yeah.
No, when I saw him on your list, I was like, nice. Glad we have this in common. Yeah. No, excellent pick though. For both of you, I love both those picks. You may or may not see. I had Charles Soule. You might not see. You may maybe see the other guy on my list too. Who knows? What are we going on to? Number 4 right now.
Yep, and I believe it's me.
All you, buddy.
Awesome. So, two things. Jerry Conway. I'm going to talk about iconic Bronze Age writer. Going back to Tomb Dracula, he did the Blade issues, the first appearance of Blade, the origin, and a lot of those. After he took the reins from Marv Wolfman. So how do you do that? Just create Blade, and add a great character, a foil to Dracula. But my favorite Jerry Conway thing, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Green Goblin's my favorite Marvel villain. The death of Gwen Stacy is up there. I've mentioned Death of Superman and Crescent Infinite Earths. The death of Gwen Stacy issues. He wrote emotion for Peter. Like, you felt it, and the TV show did a good job, in the 90s. But reading it, and you feel the emotion. He wrote that so well. He wrote that iconic, tragic storyline, and I'll never forget the cover. It's "You killed the woman I love." So it's like my all-time favorite Spider-Man story, and that's why I had to put Jerry Conway on my list.
Great pick, man. It's also, The Punisher.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, great pick.
So Tom King, Chin, or Mike had him at 5. I had him at 4. I don't really want to say too much. You definitely did a great job with everything. His current Penguin run is amazing. Another reason why I put him on here was definitely Heroes in Crisis. It's the one thing that I think we never thought about with superheroes, like PTSD, and him being an ex-CIA guy, experiencing and understanding it. It was something that you never really thought about in comics. And for him to actually do it in a superhero format was just so amazing, to put it into the comic book format, to see like superheroes and how they deal with, tragedy and what they deal with after, saving things. And so, yeah, Tom King definitely up there. Again, another Batman guy as well. So, but Mike, you definitely hit it on the head with all the stuff for Tom King. So.
Thanks. And then this is I know I mentioned it. I'm going for a ride. That's on my list to read. I had the trade. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about that.
And he's writing the movie for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is awesome. My number 4, Jeff Loeb. I absolutely love this man's writing. Batman Hush is probably my favorite Batman storyline ever. But not just that, I love all of his Marvel, Batman, Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, Daredevil Yellow. They're all so good. I love him and Tim Sale, R.I.P. But the two of them together put out just incredible stuff. The Gambit, Wolverine Gambit Victims, like the Jack the Ripper kind of style of it. Since I've been reading comics, I've been a big fan of Jeff Loeb. I got to meet him before. Very nice man. He signed my hardcover Wolverine Gambit, which was awesome. But yeah, he is very good at taking a character and just giving you one full-fledged story of just consistently great issues. I don't want to spoil Hush for those that haven't read it, but he involves almost every Batman villain possible in a very unique way that fits the overall story. And he does it very similar with almost every character he writes. I loved his run on Hulk too. We got the Red Hulk because of him. That was a great run. Was it 2007, 2008, I think. But I've been a big fan of Jeff Loeb for a very long time, and I will continue. I'll keep reading whatever he puts out. So he's my number 4.
Cool.
If you have not read any of like the Marvel, like Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, Daredevil Yellow, read them. They're great. They're awesome reads, all of them.
Yeah.
All right. Top 3?
Let's do this. And I believe it's Justin starts off.
Well, here's where I guess people may start hating me, and that's fine because 2 and 1 are going to be really funny. All right, Jeff Johns, DC. If it wasn't for Jeff Johns, we wouldn't have Flashback, Barry Allen, and we wouldn't have Hal Jordan, Green Lantern back. He literally took those characters, brought them back, and just wrote them so well. Pre-New 52, the whole Green Lantern, created all the spectrums, all the different rings. Like, he was the guy who made Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern like a cool book, because that book sucked for years.
Yeah, it was rough. It was real rough.
Flash, same thing, man. Flash
Mm.
Rebirth, not Flash Rebirth like in the DC Rebirth, but Flash Rebirth, bringing Barry back from like Crisis on Infinite Earths,
Yep.
Flashpoint, and then just writing right into New 52, continuing with Green Lantern, and then switching over and making Aquaman like a fucking badass. Yes,
The fact that you
100%.
can make Aquaman like you're like, oh wow, this is a fucking crazy great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can remember in 2011, I'm like, I finally I'm really getting back into comics, and I kind of was like picking up all the number ones, and I picked and choose, I stuck with the Batman. And even his original like Justice League run is amazing with him and Jim Lee.
Mhm.
And I was like picking up other ones, and I was like, you know what, let me do the Green Lantern as well. And I was doing the Wonder Woman, and I'm like, do I really want to do Aquaman? And fuck, man, this was such a good, those first like 20, 25 issues that he did. It was just so good. It was so awesome. And it's the reason why we were able to get an Aquaman movie, was because people enjoyed and like liked Aquaman for all of a sudden. Cause
Yeah. For years he's always been the butt of the joke.
yeah,
Aquaman sucks.
Yeah. He's talking to fish. This is stupid. But then, he's a big reason why that image turned around.
Yep.
Yeah, no, awesome pick. I also really enjoy his pose. He went all out for his photo shoot. Yeah. My number 3. These guys had just recently talked about him many times. But Tom King. I absolutely love Tom King's writing. I've met him multiple times. Super, super nice dude. Loves what he does. I mean, his Mr. Miracle run, I love. Some of my favorite things in comics, I love when it's just a mini series or maxi series on a specific character, and no one does that better than Tom King.
Mhm.
Between the Vision run, Mr. Miracle, his Human Target, I think someone was saying in the chat earlier.
Yeah, John B. Ross.
Yeah, he does it so goddamn well, and I love it. And then, I mean, Heroes in Crisis, I kind of talk, maybe not the most beloved by people. I absolutely loved it. He did a Swamp Thing special too. I don't know if you guys.
That's
ever read
right.
that.
You won an Eisner for that, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible read if you've never read it. But no, he takes these characters, gives it like a new layer to it, and he just does it so damn well. I'll read anything he puts out. I love it. And I will say, I only have one sketch cover in my entire collection, and it's from this guy. There's gonna be a horrible view. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see it, but hold on, we'll get it in there. It's not gonna show up well. But he did a Heroes in Crisis sketch cover for me. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that.
It's Batman by, as he wrote on it, a huge whole whale shark. And it just says, Batman's help, I'm a hero in crisis.
Nice.
Yeah, he did. It's one of my favorite things I own. And he signs it, I'm sorry, Tom.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
it's
That's his thing. I find it funny that we all had him as 543.
Yeah, I was laughing pretty hard when I was like, and I picked the yellow background just so it sticks out more. So let's just see this go right across the screen. Yeah, but no, I love Tom King's work. So
yeah.
I met him a long time ago. Actually, I met him multiple times, but like Mike said, he will sit there and talk about what he's doing and these characters. Because Heroes in Crisis, Booster Gold and Wally West are my 2 favorite DC characters. Hands down. And when Heroes in Crisis was out, I talked to him for a good 20 minutes at a booth one time about, he's like, yeah, Barry's cool and stuff, but fuck Barry. It's all about Wally. I was like, okay, now we're talking. All right, here we go. And like just joking. It was cool. So yep, he's my number 3.
And he's a good sales pitch. Like he's been on Word Balloon podcast and the Comic Pop YouTube podcast. Always a fun interview. So if
he's also been on 3 Men in a Basement. Once.
How could I forget?
Yes, he was.
That classic clip.
And speaking of classic, for those who watch the Top 10 Artists video, you're probably sick of me talking about this guy. But back to King Kirby. Chin mentioned it with, known for his FF run, but, FF's my favorite team book. And I'm not taking anything away from Stan Lee. But you read articles and you hear about his setup, how he had the Bible, he had all different types of scripts and literature from religions from all over the world and incorporated that into his stories. And if you read FF and don't see that translation, along with Thor, with Norse mythology, his Thor you gotta have, it's acquired taste with his Thor if you could read in, Thor, but I love what he did and brought into the Thor book and brought that into Marvel. Um, and then you mentioned it with the DC, created Darkseid with the Fourth World. The story is that before he left Marvel, that was his plan after Ragnarok to create, there were the old gods and here are the new gods. So he's like, I'm going to keep that and, shove it to them. And creating the, you mentioned it, the Forever People, Mr. Miracle, Darkseid, Orion. And that Mr. Miracle, people, talk about it's a tough read. I don't think so. I think it's fun. The character's great, creative. Him, Big Barda, who he took inspiration from his wife Roz. And then when he went back to Marvel, Eternals, I'll give some people that might not be the easiest read, but he did Devil Dinosaur, which I'm a huge dinosaur nut, so I love his Devil Dinosaur, and the Black Panther that he did. So he's the king, and I'll cut it off at that.
Nice, excellent. I love all three of these picks. I'm not gonna lie. There's not one pick I've disagreed with. When I was like making the slideshow, I'm like, we all have great taste.
Absolutely. There's no expense with this panel.
Yeah. All right, number 2. Who is it? Is it me?
Yep.
There we go.
Yes.
Going to a fellow bearded brother, the recluse himself, Mr. Alan Moore. He's probably in a cabin somewhere in the middle of London, it's on the outskirts of London somewhere. This guy can write like no other. You look at, just Watchmen alone. You get Watchmen, Viva Vendetta. He honestly, the reason he is so high up on my list is his Swamp Thing run. I think it's my favorite run in comics. It's up there. It's so effing good. You get Constantine, all this stuff. It's such a good read. But there's no way you can talk about comic writers and not talk about Alan Moore. As crazy as, people have made him out to be and whatever his real life views are and stuff. But I absolutely love all of his writing. It's just so cool. Constantine is one of my favorite characters, and the fact that he created him, he did stuff on Hellblazer and all this. I honestly don't even know what else to keep saying because, he is just, it's so good. If you haven't read Watchmen, read it. Viva Vendetta, his Swamp Thing run alone is why he's so high on my list. He's done so much more. But yeah, he deserves to be up on this list, and I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. And you didn't mention one thing, and I'm happy. And you might hear.
I stopped myself. I stopped. So yeah.
And you guys, I'll keep this very short too. You guys hit out of the park between his Indies work, his Batman run. I will say, when I was in college and picking up trades, him and Snyder's Batman run, and that is, it's a top 2 comic run for me. The Court of Owls, phenomenal. Mr. Bloom's a very unique character. But I'll mention, I really love death metal. I like death metal. I was a big fan of metal. The Batman Who Laughs is probably my favorite new villain over the last 5-10 years. I really loved what he did with that series. And you guys mentioned, it's a great guy to meet at a convention. And I'm excited. I'm a trade and wait guy, so I am excited about the DC All In and Absolute Batman. So he was just on a podcast talking about that. So Scott Snyder, I had to put on mine.
There you go. And that rounds it out to the 2 people that are on our list, Scott Snyder and Tom King.
All right,
Justin, what do you got?
Ooh, all right. So here's where people are going to hate me and be like, what? Who?
No,
that's right.
This is a fantastic pick.
All right. So there is not a book that I will not read that Rick doesn't do. I love Rick so much. Deadly Class, Black Science, Grommets, his Venom run is still hands down, and I talk about this constantly on the podcast. His Venom run is by far the best. Uncanny X-Force, you name it, 7 to Eternity. Like, there is not a book that I do not pick up from Rick Remender. It is hands down. He's one of the coolest guys. Deadly Class was one of my favorite things. And like when they made it a TV series, I was so upset that they only did one season. It didn't get picked up for longer. His Black Science stuff is so good. Uncanny X-Force, just the team by itself is, and not only just the team, but the way he writes Deadpool is probably the only way that I can read Deadpool. Venom, same thing, like having Flash Thompson as Venom, just amazing as well. Black Science was like one of my first early reads from him. So another sci-fi type of thing. Sacrificers is another book off the top of my head. Tokyo Ghost is another book. His indie stuff is probably hands down one of the like coolest things to read for anything. So yeah, Rick had to be up there super high.
Yeah,
And he hasn't done too much on the DC side, so it's perfect.
Yeah, he hasn't. Yeah, he had a lot of indie and Marvel. His Uncanny X-Force run is one of my favorite X-Men runs ever. It's, if you haven't read it, it's so good. It's dark, it's bloody, it's awesome.
Just the team. I mean, Wolverine, Phantom X, Deadpool, like so good, man. So good.
Yeah, that's a great read. I read a handful of his stuff, but that is my favorite of his runs. It's so good. All right.
All righty.
You boys ready? Number one.
Let's do it.
Our top favorite comic writers. Number one. We're going to you, Mike.
So Chin hit it out of the park, and I appreciate you for leaving that one little thing for me. But on top of his Swamp Thing, I mentioned Snyder's Batman. Snyder's Batman, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing are my 1 and 2, and I'll throw them for just to make it an even nice 3. Kirby's FF. Those are my 3 favorite runs of comics. But what do you get for the Man of Tomorrow? As a Superman fan, I mentioned the death of Gwen Stacy, and I've mentioned the death of Superman, but this story, what he did, introducing the Black. Mercy.
Yep, there you go.
Yes. The Black Mercy brought in, Superman's birthday, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman on the way to the
Forces of Solitude.
God, yes. Birthday party for Superman, and he has this ugly flower, Cthulhuian thing on his chest. It brings Superman to what happened if, a day on Krypton, brings him back to Krypton. He's got a family, he's got a son, and it's just, if you've never read this, like, I almost don't want to go too much into it for those if you haven't read this iconic Superman story.
It's only one issue.
Yeah, it's
one issue.
Simple read. But it's so good, and just I've been talking about emotion, like, you really feel for Superman's character, and the beating he gives the Mongol at the end is chef's kiss after everything that he just put him through. Living that fake alternate reality is just, it's like a top 2 Superman story for me. He also did a Superman Swamp Thing. DC Comics Presents 2, which is really solid. So he brought in Swamp Thing to Superman. That was a good read. You mentioned it, Watchmen. So Alan Moore, a guy I'd love to meet. But
good luck.
if he'll ever leave that cabin in London.
Yeah. What Broke Boy said, though, they adapted it in
Yes.
the Justice League animated series, and it's an awesome episode, and it's
tearjerker.
Very true to what he wrote in the book. So,
and the Supergirl show, before it got unwatchable, they did a good adaptation of that too.
Oh,
yeah. Anytime they bring in the Black Mercy is always cool. They've brought it in. It's in the newest stuff, the Absolute Power. They brought it back.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, it's in there.
Sweet, nice. Justin.
Another indie writer. I'm sure Chin likes this one, not only for the indie stuff, but we'll talk about Star Wars. Charles Soule, Volume 2. Darth Vader is probably the next best Star Wars written series is Darth Vader Volume 1. Wrote early Dr. Aphra.
Yeah, he created Dr. Aphra.
Huh?
He created Aphra.
Yeah, he created Aphra, so he had the writer, right? He had to write the first series for her. What else? Die. I'm a huge fan of Die, the Goth Jumanji type book. And Once in Future, another book that Zach and I have talked about numerous times, the Arthurian lore, all that stuff. Currently writing Power Fantasy, which they just had the first issue out as well. But Yeah, man. Kieran Gillen is another great indie writer that can bounce between doing something that's established IP and then also bringing it back into, his own world. So building out all these worlds has just been amazing to watch Kieran work. And he's in the Chin's been saying, anything that he puts out, I pick up, and that's exactly what it is. So
Yeah,
him and Rick were definitely back and forth. But yeah, I absolutely love this title. I think he's a great writer, hands down. And I would love to meet him because I'd have him sign so much of the Star Wars stuff.
you'd be the guy with the short box being like, "Hello, sir."
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, Kieran, here's volume 1 of Darth Vader. Can you just sign every issue and all my Darth Vader volume issue number 3s?
Yeah,
all the printings.
Yep. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, that's an awesome pick. Yeah, he crushes it. Everything he does. Awesome pick. My number 1 pick is Jeff Johns. If it was not for Jeff Johns, I wouldn't be reading comic books. Plain and simple. His run, I mean, he did on the Flash before Flash Rebirth, but I mean, I'm not gonna. Justin kind of talked a lot about it, but like his Green Lantern Rebirth into Sinestro Corps War into Blackest Night, he brought back Hal Jordan, he brought back Barry Allen. He can tell a story like no other, where he's responsible for reviving so many great characters, including one of my all-time favorites of Booster Gold. If you have not read Jeff Johns, I think it's 2004 run of Booster Gold, it is the reason I love the character so much. That's one of the storylines I recommend to everybody. It's so good. He's got Booster Gold time traveling in and out of crazy DC moments in history, including Killing Joke. It's so good. It's so cool. But even his stuff on the Wally West run of Flash, his Rebirth. It's just, this guy is the reason I read comics, and I will read anything he puts out. And I can't say enough good things about his writing. So I'm going to stop myself. But yeah, he is my number 1 pick, and most likely will always be my number 1 pick. I wouldn't read comics if it wasn't for him. So there you go. That's our top 10s, guys.
That wasn't easy.
It really wasn't.
No.
I mean, so I did put on the honorable mentions because there was so many going back and forth. Like, honestly, the fact that none of us had Stan Lee, he was my number 10 for a long time, just for the mere fact of creating so many of these characters and everything. I had Brubaker was teetering right there. I love Brubaker's run. Mark Waid was also on there. I loved his Flash stuff. Like this, so Wolfen was also on mine. I had a ton. So
I had a lot of, the way I did mine, so people understand it, is I had a list of like 20, and I had a couple females on there, but at the end of the day, if I couldn't think of, I could think of the writer, but if I couldn't think of the title or the series that really meant something to me, I wasn't putting that person on there. Like,
that's
Gail Simone was up there for sure. She teetered on it just to say I could have a female. Marjorie Bennett was on there. Stephanie Phillips.
I had Stephanie Phillips on mine for a while.
Yeah, I had a lot of people on there, and I just was like, it was just so tough, and I just had to think about it. Like, when you look at this person, like, what do you think about it? And like, what did it mean to you when you read that story? And do you reread that story how many times? That's where I was at.
Yeah, there's 2 names that after I sent my list in, I was like, I kicked myself. One, I forgot if it was Justin or Sean that texted our group message about Jeff Johns better be on all the lists.
Yeah. Mike literally texted me. He's like, how the fuck could I forget Jeff Johns? And I was like, I don't know, but you did.
And Chin gave me the option, but why I kept them off is because I've read Blackest Night and I've read Rebirth, but I haven't read Sinestro Corps War, so I haven't fully read all of that. I've read Flashpoint, but not all of Rebirth. So I figured, because I haven't read a lot of his runs in full, I was like, I guess that's why I can justify not putting him on. But those runs are great. Those are iconic in what you guys said. And then Jeff Loeb, I was like, I just now, I was like, son of a, because Hush is my favorite Batman story. And it was just thinking of writers was such a task for me, and I didn't even think of Hush. And but on some names that weren't mentioned, I had two indie guys. Brian Goldsmith. I've interviewed on my channel. He hasn't done a lot, all in the indies, but being a horror fan for the for Source Point Press, he wrote this little miniseries called The Seance Room. If you're into anthology horror, that's all I'll say. Definitely check it out. Brian Goldsmith, and the phenomenal, very nice guy, really cool writer, loves horror. And then Cullen Bunn, speaking of horror, speaking of indies, he was on my list, but I did kick him off. I was thinking more about some of the classic Bronze Age guys, but damned he did on the indies. He did.
Yeah, Mike originally sent me a list with 11 people. When I was making this slideshow, I was like, Mike, you got one too many guys on here. Who you cutting?
And that was
when I sent to you, I was just like, oh, who can I send the list to? And you're like, you. And then I realized that I saved over it. I was just like, God damn it. But originally I probably had 15 people, and I was gonna be like, Chin, just pick any 10, like, and I'll talk about them some way, somehow. And then you're like, well, how's this list? Does it go down or up? I was just like, whatever.
Both of you sent me the list with no numbers. I was like, which way am I going on this? Like, who's top, who's bottom?
But yeah, the Deadpool Carnage, also good from Cullen Bunn. He's done a lot of cool stuff for Marvel and also the indies. But Justin, any more honorable mention for you as well, or in Chin?
No, like I said, I had a couple females on there. There's really not, I think you guys added a couple people that I probably could have put on there, but I don't think I have anybody else. Like,
I mean, I could keep going for a long time. Greg Pak is one of them. Planet Hulk is one of my all-time favorite storylines.
Yep, Pak would have been on mine too.
Yeah, but no, I don't want to keep listening because we could be here for another couple days.
I had Jason Aaron on there at a point.
Jason Aaron was teetering on that number. Like, I actually had him at like 9 for a while, and then I was like thinking that there's so many people that I can go on, and I'm gonna just stop myself. So
but guys, seriously, thank you so much for joining me. I'm a sucker for top 10s. I'll fall asleep to random top 10 vids on anything. So I love doing these. Thank you guys for taking the time to put the list together. Chin, thank you for putting the slideshow together. I really appreciate it. And hearing you guys talk about why these guys made your list, and the ongoing thing with passion. The passion in your voices, talking about the stories and the impacts they had on you, was great. So thank you so much for joining me for this video tonight, because this was fun.
Yeah, definitely. This is for the people that are watching this live or on the rewind. Like, this is why we got into comics. Like, it's not about buying and selling and speculating. It's about the reads. Like, a lot of these people, like, when I was putting them on, I'm like, man, I need to go back. I want to reread this story. I want to go back and read this stuff. And that's what kind of gets you keeping into comics. Now it's like, hey, I'll go buy the omnibus, or I'll buy the trades, or if I still have the issues.
That's how, like, I've had a bunch of people throughout my life be like, oh, hey, I want to get into comics and stuff. Not once have I ever been like, oh, hey, go buy, Hulk 180, or go buy, ASM 1. Like, I'm like, hey, what's a character you like? Let's get a couple trades for you. Read the stories, fall in love with these characters.
That's how I got. Yeah.
That's how you got to do it. But like Justin said, it's the reason we got into this. Like, why would we collect this stuff if we didn't enjoy what we were collecting? But yeah, it's hopefully everybody watching, live and on the rewind got some great recommendations, or stuff that they agree with or haven't read and always wanted to. In the comments, give us some of yours, because I'd love to read. So give me more to read, something that we probably missed. I can guarantee you there's someone watching this being like, how did you guys none of you had this person or whatever for this story or this story? Let me hear it, because I would love to read more. So thanks for joining, guys.
So
thanks for having me as well.
It's my pleasure. Justin, you got some fun stuff coming up. So tell the fine people what you got going on.
So latest episode of the Comic-Con podcast will drop on this Friday. We have a guest. We have Ferdbird the Nerd joining us tomorrow for our recording. And then next weekend, Zach and I will be down in Baltimore. We're looking to do a live show, probably a live show. And then we'll just drop it onto the podcast side on Friday morning. So every Friday, find the Comic-Con podcast, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcast platform. Also on YouTube, you can find them usually a couple days later. So just give us a follow everywhere, Instagram and everywhere else.
And yeah, if you guys haven't checked them out, like you just said, I always tell Justin that's my perfect Friday morning commute. You know, I listen to the Comic-Con podcast, so those guys do a great job. They got good things going. Chin, before we go to you, the two writers, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott Snyder and Tom King, Otto's
Correct.
favorite artist.
That is correct.
And speaking of Otto, Chin, what do you get? I kind of bad transition, but Chin, what do you got going on?
I do stuff over on that channel, Three Men in the Basement. I got a video that I'm actually going to wrap up right after this, but I opened a bunch of cool Star Wars cards, and you guys get to see how cool these cards look in real life. So that's gonna be dropping tomorrow. Not this weekend, next weekend. I'll be up at Granite Con to get some more cool signatures and art done on this awesome thing here.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'll be up there on the 21st, 22nd, whatever that weekend is. But yeah, that's where I'll be next. I'm hopefully going to be down in Jersey on October 5th for MTG Comics Trick or Trade. So if you're in the area, hopefully you can make that too. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up, and that's what I got going on.
Awesome. And then I have so many ideas for shows coming up. I have some ideas for October, maybe end of the month for some horror related things. So Chin probably won't be.
I'm busy. Sorry.
But I'm thinking like just to do an all-time favorite horror movies. You could do, I was thinking performances or top 10 movies to watch fall with that fall theme, Halloween theme. I was thinking comedies. I don't know why, but a top 10 comedy movies. Because comedy and horror are kind of the same thing if you think about it.
Nope, really not. Nope.
They're both subjective. And then I just saw Beetlejuice and featuring Michael Keaton.
I did too. I enjoyed it. It was actually pretty damn good.
I gotta go see it this weekend.
It was fun. It was a fun watch.
Keaton's one of my favorite actors, so I was like, what fit in your top 10 favorite actors? So I have a bunch of ideas cooking here. We might never see any of them. We might see all of them and more than you'd like. But as always, for everyone who tuned in tonight live, who's going to watch on the rewind, appreciate your time. Appreciate these two. Like I said, follow them on their socials and on their podcasts and YouTube channels. They do great stuff. And wouldn't be a show without the help of the great people in this community in the chat on the video tonight with me. And take it easy, everyone. Thanks again for enjoying, and peace.